listening to Tassie Encounters Moments, and you're on Faith FM. We're coming to you from Tasmania, right across Australia. Each weekday at 9 a.m, you can hear what the Bible says about past, current and future events. You can learn how to study the Bible more effectively. You can get to know who God is, why we're here and where we're going. And you can experience personal encounters with Jesus. I'm your host, Jason Cook, and today we've got David Maxwell back with us on our Tassie Encounters Moments program. Welcome, David.
How are you, Jason?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thanks.
It's great to have you here this week for our short programs, Tassie Encounters Moments. You've been going through Revelation in different areas, and today we're looking at a specific topic of the 144,000. So I'd be keen to get into that. So you'd like to introduce the topic with something a little bit different, though.
Yeah, that's right. So today in this program, I'm going to introduce the topic with a background on really the whole essence of this 144,000. And we're going to look at the challenges of obedience versus disobedience today. Now, there's some real challenges there. I'm sure you've grown up with obedience and disobedience challenges as well. But that's what we're going to dig into. We're going to dig right into that, and we're going to find a lot more about the 144,000 people, this special group that's numbered in Revelation, or spoken about in a couple of places in Revelation, and we're going to unpack that throughout these series of programs.
Awesome. Just want to remind our listeners too, our show number is 0488 880 891. Don't forget about that. You can still claim our book offers. You can still text us in, answer our questions, ask questions, whatever you want. Still, our number's available for you to use. So 0488 880 891. So David, let's get into this. Where are we starting today?
Let's dive in. Yeah, challenges of obedience versus disobedience. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, there's safety in numbers. That's often true when you look at David Attenborough's wildlife shows. You see there's safety in numbers. If you're in the middle of the crowd when you're an antelope, it's safer than if you're running by yourself.
Yes.
So many people have said there's safety in numbers, but it's not always true. I don't know if you've ever followed the crowd, as it were, and it turned out to be a poor choice.
Yeah, I've been thinking about those things. I tend not to be one that follows the crowd.
That's actually not a bad thing. It really isn't. When I joined the Air Force, I was the only Christian I knew of, and there were 90 young men, 15 to 16-year-olds in my intake. But at Wagga Wagga, there was also, on the training base, there was also around about the same number of previous year apprentices, a little bit less, and there were also, for the first 3 months, a same number of the third-year apprentices. They were there for the first 4 months or 3 months, and then they were posted out. So there was about 250 to 300 apprentices. And I was the only one that I knew of that was a Christian. There was another I suspected, but he kind of kept things pretty quiet. And so they made life really hard for me. And along the way, after that first year, I decided, you know what, it'll be easier to just go with the flow, go with the crowd, follow the majority, and then things will be a lot easier. Now, in a lot of ways, that kind of happened. Things were a little bit easier. But, you know, I found out that being one of the boys isn't all it's cracked up to be, you know. What I thought I was doing, what was easier, and certainly it stopped them taunting me. I didn't get so much hassles, but it came at a cost. It came at a cost, and it wasn't really what I wanted in life. So later on, I reversed those decisions, which graciously God gave me the time to do. But in the Bible, we see examples of when it's not wise to follow the crowd. You know, you've heard the saying, like, we have to accept the majority vote. And as a church, we accept the majority vote, don't we? But it's not always the right decision. So if we're going to accept majority votes, we have to make sure we're praying about it and that God's leading us. But back in Numbers, in chapter 13, there's this issue with going with the numbers. So we don't have time to read it all today, but if you want to read chapter 13 of Numbers, you'll see how what happens is the Israelites have arrived in Canaan, and God says to Moses, send some spies out, send some men out to check out the land before I send you in. So, God knew what the land looked like. God knew what was in the land. It wasn't for God's benefit. It was for their benefit to build and strengthen their faith. And 10 of them fail the test. They go out, they see the beautiful fruit, they get one bunch of grapes, they put it on a pole between two of them and they bring it back. That was a huge bunch of grapes. Now, either it was lots of grapes or they were big grapes. Either way, it was plentiful. And they come back and they say, yes, the land is flowing with milk and honey. Even the rebels, even those that reject God eventually, they acknowledge that, yes, it is a good land, but, they say, but there's giants, they've got huge walls around their cities. We were like grasshoppers. So these were real giants, they must have been like Goliath-sized giants, 9 foot, maybe even more. And so there are real obstacles. Now, to be fair to the Israelites, they'd been slaves all their lives and they weren't used to fighting. So, they were instilled with fear and they were clearly worried about what they saw. But we also have to remember on the other side, they have seen God do some absolutely impossible things. He's shown his might in Israel. He's shown his power. He's shown that he controls the elements, not anybody else. He parts the Red Sea, defeats the Egyptians. They don't have to lift a finger. He provides water out of dry ground, right? That just, Moses hits the stones and out comes some water. They don't have to do anything. He feeds them every day. He gives them bread from heaven. They know it's from God. He makes a special promise as he does this, and he gives them twice as much on one day so they don't have to collect on Sabbath and they can rest with him. They see all of these mighty miracles that God had wrought, and they knew that God was with them and God was definitely with Moses. So out of these 12 spies that were chosen, all of them witnessed God's mighty power throughout those. They think it's around about 2 years by the time they get from Egypt to Canaan, between 1 year and 2 years. However, for 10 of them, there's just so much mistrust. They see all the bounty of the land. Sure, that was good. It was a land flowing with milk and honey. But they see the obstacles and they focus more on their own strength rather than God's strength. But Caleb and Joshua seem to be of a completely different mindset altogether. They see the same things, but the majority were fearful and they doubted that God could overcome. But the majority were wrong. And Joshua and Caleb were the ones that had the faith. They were the ones that said, hey, come on, you've seen what God can do. We can do this. We just need to have faith in God so we can keep moving forward. And I wonder if, some of the Egyptians that had come out with them were the people who were starting these complaints, I wonder,
It's interesting how, I guess that lack of faith and the consequence of that was those people were not allowed to go into the land. It seems like a harsh punishment, harsh. But God takes faith seriously, I guess.
Yeah, look, he really does. It's a good point because other people in the Bible, they lack faith. God didn't deal with them harshly, did he?
True.
And you're going to have to keep me on time here.
Doubting Thomas. We've got to wrap up in 2 minutes.
2 minutes, right? Yes. Oh, I can see it there now. There's many examples, but this was really, really different. There was doubt. And there's rebellion. Now, the people who come to God, who come to Jesus and say, Jesus, I believe, kind of. I kind of believe, but I've got some doubt. how can you help me? Please help me. You know, there are people in the Bible that do that. But in this particular story, they absolutely reject. They say, right, we're done. We're going to pick a new leader. You know, they are completely rebelling against God and against Moses, the one that's been picked to lead them. So, you know, there's a lot of things we can learn, and this will help set the stage for the 144,000 in these programs that we're going to talk about, is that God will always give you evidence of his love. Now, he doesn't give you so much evidence that there's no room to doubt, because that removes your free will.
Yeah.
But he gives you little tests in life, and through those little tests, we should be able to rely on God. And if we rely on God through the little tests, it will give us confidence to be ready for the big ones. Now, these big giants, it was a big test. So they should have been trusting all the way through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go on. You were going to say something?
No, it's all good.
All right. Look, I think it's possible, though, to doubt and still obey. To obey God and still be doubtful. You know, Jairus' daughter dies and he loses hope just about, and immediately Jesus says, don't be afraid, only believe. And that's the kind of faith he wants us to have. So I want to challenge our listeners in the last few seconds that we have to make sure that we're making the right choices, be ready through the little trials, put our faith in Jesus. And it's a simple but profound faith when we choose to take him at his word.
Absolutely. We've got a question for you to contemplate this week. Have you ever done something? If you'd like to share with us, have you ever learnt the lessons of disobedience, the results of disobedience? Text us in on 0488 880891. Share a time that you learnt the results of disobedience.
This program is made possible by the support of Adventist World Radio.
Our book offer this week is called Creation and Evolution, and you can text in the code TEM05 to 0488 880891. This is by Dwight Nelson, and it's a thoughtful look at the evidence for a master designer. The debate is heating up. Did a loving God create this earth, or are we the random product of millions of years of natural selection? That's our book offer, so do remember that. TEM05, no spaces, text it in to 0488 880891. Tune in again for our next episode, and we'll be going into detail on the 144,000 as described in Revelation 7 and Revelation 14 in the Bible. So do tune in for our next episode. Thank you, David, and we'll talk again soon.
We'll talk soon.
This is Hillside Recording and Abigail Faith, called Yet. May you encounter Jesus more today and each day.
God, don't give up on me yet. I know I'm not your best bet, but I'm trying, so don't give up on me yet. And God, please don't leave me here alone. I know I need to grow still, and I'm trying, don't leave me here alone. I know I've come so far, but got so far to go. And with these brand new scars and this broken heart, it's hard to really know if there's a reason and if I'll ever see it. But I wanna believe it, so don't give up on me. give up on me yet. Oh, we thank you. Don't give up on me. Don't give up on me. Don't I know I'm not the same, but you knew that I would change, and I think that you're trying to tell me it's okay.
This program has been made possible by the support of Adventist World Radio.